We have economics paper 2, May 2022. It is estimated that the marginal propensity to consume in Germany is 0.4. Which one of the following represents the value of the multiplier in Germany? Multiplier is 1 over 1 minus marginal propensity to consume. So it is 1 over, that's 1 over, 1 over 1.4. 1 over 1 minus 4. 1 over 1 minus 0.4. So that gives us 1.66, which is roughly 1.7. So the answer is C. Question 2. The Indian Central Bank, Indian Central Bank, the Reserve Bank of India, has an inflation target and is banker to the Indian government. Which one of the following is also a role of the central bank? The role of the central bank is that it's the banker's bank or it's the government bank, and it can act as a lender of last resort. It does not increase the trade deficit now. The role of the central bank is that it acts as a government bank, it acts as a banker to other banks, as a lender of last resort. So the answer is B. Question 3. In Indonesia, it is estimated that approximately 27% of part-time workers are employed for fewer hours than they would be willing to work. So if workers still have more time that they are not engaged, that is underemployment. That means they have the ability to work, but they still have more spare time, which doesn't give them opportunity to work. So that is underemployment. So the answer is A. Question 4. This chart shows that the annual rate of inflation in Colombia measured by the CPI. So you all got it wrong anyway, I don't know why. So they said there was disinflation from January 2016 to July 2016. From January 2016 to July 2016, there was no disinflation. The inflation rate was increasing. So there was inflation. There was deflation from January 2017 to July 2017. January 2017 to July 2017, there's a fall in the rate of inflation. That's disinflation, not deflation. It's not B. The average price level was unchanged between January 2019 and July 2019. January 2019 to July 2019, the average price changed.
So it's D.
It's D. The answer is D. So the average price level was lower in January 2020 than July 2020. Look at it. In January 2020, it's lower compared to July 2020. Yeah. So the answer is D for question 4. We go to question 5. In 2020, the Italian government spent 945.6 billion and received 789.3 billion in tax revenue. For tax revenue, it is fiscal policy. And fiscal policy is the use of taxes or government spending or government borrowing to achieve macroeconomic objectives. So it is not A, it is not B. So based on the fact that government revenue reduced, so that is deflationary fiscal policy. So the answer is C. Clear?
So it reduces
deflationary. When it increases, it's reflationary. Question 6. The diagram shows the short-run aggregate supply curve and the aggregate demand curve for China economy. Which one of the following is most likely to cause the change from SRAS1 to SRAS2? That's a leftward shift. A leftward shift will be as a result of an increase in energy prices, which will bring about an increase in the cost of production. So the answer is A for question 6. Done. We go to question 7. Are you there? Yes. The chart shows Malaysia net monthly balance of trade in goods and services May 2020 to May 2021. With reference to the chart, there's been one likely reason for the surplus in Malaysian balance of trade in goods and services. First, balance of trade surplus implies that the value of export is greater than the value of import. A surplus may occur based on the following reasons: 1, depreciation in the exchange rate; 2, improvement in the quality of export; and 3, increase in productivity. So I talked about depreciation in the currency. Depreciation in the country's currency means that foreign customers will be able to buy more of domestic goods. So which simply means foreign customers will be able to buy Malaysian goods because Malaysia will be more internationally competitive based on the fact that the export prices would fall. As a result, more exports will be done. So if export is done more than import, then it will bring about surpluses. And as soon as there's depreciation in the country's currency, the price of imports become expensive. So the Malaysians will do less of importation. I think it's correct. Question 8. For the year ending June 2020, there were 153,900 immigrants arriving in New Zealand and 74,200 immigrants. Immigrants are the people leaving the country. Immigrants are the people coming in. So an increase in the immigrant number means that the supply of labor will increase. And if the supply of labor increases, it will increase the output in New Zealand. As a result, the long aggregate supply curve is expected to shift rightward from LRAS1 to LRAS2 because the real output will extend from Y1 to Y2, and the price level will fall from P1 to P2. I think it's clear. Question 9. The table shows the nominal GDP and GDP per capita of Angola in 2019 and 2020. Based on the information, calculate the change in Angola's population. So population will be GDP divided by GDP per capita. So GDP per capita, we know that already. So GDP population in 2019 will be 89.42 divided by 2,810. And for 2020, it will be 62.31 divided by 1896. So for 2019, we have 31.82 million. And for 2020, we have 32.86 million. So the difference between them will be 2020 minus 2019. For 2020, we have 32.86. And for 2019, we have 31.82. So the change in population is 1.04 million. Clear? Question 10. The UK Central Bank extended its existing asset purchase, that's quantitative easing, program from 645 billion in March 2020 to 895 billion in November 2020. With reference to the information, explain one likely impact in the increase in quantitative easing on aggregate demand. So first, quantitative easing means the central bank is able to purchase commercial banks' assets. As a result of that, in exchange for money, which increases liquidity for the commercial bank. So with quantitative easing, commercial banks have access to more liquidity. As a result, they will be willing to lend consumers and firms more money. This will in turn increase consumption and investment. And if consumption and investment increases, aggregate demand is expected to increase. That will shift the aggregate demand curve rightward from AD1 to AD2. And the price level is expected to increase from P1 to P2 as the real output is expanding from Y1 to Y2. Then according to the case study, the quantitative easing increased by 38% when you check 64895 minus 645 divided by 100. I think it's clear. Is it clear, please? Okay. Then we'll go to question 11. They said the table shows the annual percentage change in the real GDP of Japan 2019 and 2020. The long-term trend rate of growth of the economy is estimated to be 0.5. That's what we call the output, potential output. That's the long-term trend, the potential. So with reference to the table, explain what is meant by output gap. Output gap is the difference between the actual output and the potential output. According to this table, in 2020, the potential output is 0.5%, and the actual output is negative 4.83. In 2019, the actual output, the potential output in 2020 is, in 2019 is 0.5, the potential is 0.5, and the actual is 0.27, which is positive output gap there. The other one is negative. I think it's clear. Go to question 12. 12. Okay. They said divide the term recession. Recession is a fall in the economic activity for 2 consecutive quarters. So the second question says, with reference to figure 1, explain what is meant by saving ratio. Saving ratio is a proportion of the percentage of the total disposable income that is not spent. And what is disposable income? The amount of income that we either spend or save. So according to question C, with reference to second paragraph of extract A, analyze 2 factors that cause household consumption to increase in Q3 2020. According to the figure 1, the saving ratio increased by 36. Oh, no, we talked about that already. For consumption implies to consumer spending on goods and services. So household consumption increased in Q3 due to the following reasons. 1, reduction in the interest rate. A fall in the interest rate will bring a fall in the interest rate means the price of borrowing reduces. And if the price of borrowing reduces, it will in turn increase consumer spending because consumer will have more access to loan, to money. Do you understand that?
You talked about increasing welfare benefits?
No, I talked about increasing interest rate and I talked about rising housing prices. So the rise in housing prices will bring about a positive wealth effect. And as soon as the assets of house owners increases, their consumption is expected to rise because they have more income available to spend. I think it's clear. So increasing government spending would also bring about that. So, but I only wrote about it anyway. I think it's clear. Yes. Question D. With reference to the figure 2 and extract, examine 2 likely effects of the substantial increase in the rate of unemployment on the Australian economy. Unemployment is a situation whereby people who are in the age category to work and are willing to work but they couldn't get one, they couldn't secure one. That's unemployment. And you can divide it through the ILO unemployment rate too. So the following are the consequences of the effects of increasing unemployment rate in Australia. One, an increase in government spending. It will bring about an increase in government spending. An increase in government spending would mean that government will start spending on unemployment benefits. And the government starts spending on unemployment benefits, its spending might exceed its revenue, and that would worsen the balance or the budget of the economy. Or the economy could even have a deficit budget. We call it deficit budget. Two, a fall in the rate of inflation. It could also bring about a fall in the rate of inflation, because when there's unemployment, people would not have income, and as a result of that, demand pull inflation might reduce. So here I wrote, a fall in the rate of inflation, an increase in the unemployment rate is likely to reduce inflationary pressure as demand is expected to fall. This may allow firms to reduce their prices to attract consumption, leading to a fall in demand pull inflation. I think it's clear. So go to question E. With reference to the extract B, discuss interventionist supply side policies that the Australian government could implement to increase Australia's productivity. Interventionist supply side policies are a form of government intervention to improve output within the economy and productivity. So the interventionist supply side policy that the Australian government may implement are as follows. One, provision of finance to new business startups. So this can be done through guaranteeing bank loans. We talked about it in interventionism. So what is guaranteeing bank loans means? It simply means government are standing for borrowers that, in case they don't pay back or in case the debt goes bad, we'll be there to pay you. So this will encourage banks or commercial banks to lend out money to firms and mostly firms, and that would allow firms to also increase their productivity. I think it's clear. Two, spending on infrastructure. You talked about that. Both of you talked about infrastructure. I think you talked about infrastructure. You talked, okay. Spend on infrastructure. Government will spend on building roads, bridges, electricity, and so on. This will in turn reduce the cost of production for firms. As a result, may increase their competitiveness, which may in turn increase productivity. Productivity is output per unit of input. I talked about that. So the third thing the government could do is investment in high quality of education and training. So investment in high quality of education and training will improve the skills and knowledge of the workforce. This may in turn increase the human capital and productivity. I think the point is clear. Subsidies. Government can talk about subsidies too. Financial help from government to increase investment in Australia as it brings about reduction in the cost of production. This may allow firms to invest on research and development, and as a result may bring about innovation and increase productivity. However, are you with me, please?
Yeah.
However, there may be time lag on the reward for education and training because it takes time before you start getting the reward for that. Also, government spending is an opportunity cost, as the amount of money spent by the government may not be able to be used on other strategic areas of the Australian economy. I think the point is clear.
Time lag?
Time lag, I talked about it. On education.
Okay.
Education and training.
Now, Mr. Supply side policies might not be effective as much. Is it true, Mr.?
Supply side policy?
Yeah, they might not be that effective.
It depends on the kind of policy and the situation of the economy.
Do you think demand side policies are more effective than supply side policies?
No, it depends. It depends on the state and the situation of the economy. So whatever happens, it depends on the state which the economy is at and the objective of the government of that day. Because you have the government of the previous and we have the government of today. So it depends on what the objectives are. So go to question 13. So question 13, right? Yeah, I have it. I'm just scrolling down, sorry. Okay. Yeah, they said pursuing economic growth at the expense of the environment has resulted in pollution, climate change, and overconsumption of natural resources. Evaluate the cost of economic growth. Refer to a country of your choice in your answer. So, first, what is economic growth? Economic growth implies an increase in the country's GDP or output. So, the following are the impact of economic growth to a country on a country such as Nigeria. That's my country, though. So environmental impact. So let's talk about environmental impact first. An increase in economic growth is likely to lead to an increase in carbon emission through congestion and the use of plants, equipment. An increase in economic growth may mean that the resources of a country may be used up, leading to unsustainable development. So an increase in economic growth might mean that resources in Nigeria are used up. And if they are used up, that brings about unsustainable development. An increase in economic growth might mean that a lot of firms in Nigeria are producing more output. And as a result of that, it might lead to congestion and carbon emission, which might lead to, yes, congestion and carbon emission. However, economic growth might be as a result of the use of renewable resources. So if there's economic growth in Nigeria and they're not even using resources, they are using renewable resources such as wind, solar panels. So this means there's still going to be sustainable development. I think the point is clear. An increase in economic growth, because I talked about the first two, then I talked about the second two, the positivity now. An increase in economic growth may allow firms to invest in advanced technology. And if firms are able to invest in advanced technology, that means there's not going to be pollution. So do you understand the point here? Because I talked about increase the economic growth, which brings about pollution. But if firms, because the economy is growing, firms are able to invest in the latest technology, that would bring about reduced pollution. I think environment is clear. So the second point is about inflation. Are you there? The second point is about inflation. Economic growth may lead to inflation. When we talk about inflation, the persistent rise in the price of goods and services over a period of time, right? So here I wrote, economic growth may lead to inflation. With increasing economic growth, demand is likely to increase as income level is expected to rise. This will bring about producers responding towards increasing output. As a result, may have to employ more workers. But because based on the fact that firms might want to employ more workers, but the economy is growing, that means we have reduced unemployment rate, or probably even a full employment situation. So that means the demand for labor is more than the supply of labor. So if the demand for labor is more than the supply of labor, the wage rate is expected to rise. So if the wage rate is increasing, the cost of production for firms would have to rise. As a result of that, it will bring about cost push inflation. That's the inflation I'm talking about here. Do you get it or not, please? So an increase in wage rate will bring about increasing cost of production, which is cost push inflation. However, the economy may have unemployed resources. Maybe the economy is not even reaching its full potential yet. It is not necessary that the economy reaches full potential before the economic growth. That's what we call the rate of growth. Do you understand? So if the economy is still not in its full potential, it means the supply of labor will exceed the demand for labor, which is likely to reduce the cost of wages for firms. So there might not be inflation. Do you understand the point there? So the third point here is about balance of trade deficit. An increase in economic growth means disposable income is expected to rise. And if disposable income increases, it means part of the disposable income will be spent on importation. So this may worsen the balance of payment current account because import is expected to be more than export. Another point about import and export is that firms, due to increasing demand for goods, may import raw materials and components. Because the demand for goods and services is increasing in the economy. The economy of Nigeria might not have that resources available. Firms in Nigeria might have to import raw materials. Importing raw materials increases importation. So that will bring about a deficit in the balance of payments. Do you get it? However, economic growth may have resulted in the production of quality products, which may lead to export increasing more than imports. So there might be economic growth in Nigeria because the quality of products produced in Nigeria is higher. So which simply means more export will still be done than imports. So there might not be balance of payment current account deficit. Also, economic growth may allow more investment in capital goods, which may result in greater efficiency. As a result, exports become more competitive. How is export becoming more competitive here? Because if the economy is able to invest in capital goods like technology, prices of goods and services would fall, and that would make them to be more internationally competitive, which simply means exports will exceed imports, and that will bring about. So that means we might not see balance of payment deficit. So that ends. Yeah, we did that. That ends paper 2, May 2022. Thank you.